The Guyana Livestock Development Authority and its local and international partners held a simulation exercise on May 12 in Mabaruma Northwest District to test the readiness of Guyana's systems to contain an outbreak of foot-and-mouth disease locally. Following the exercise, the country's preparedness to respond to an emergency emanating from an epidemic received high marks. Our team was on the ground, and in this week's edition of In Depth, we take a look at the simulation exercise.
The future of Guyana has never looked better. Our nation is on the cusp of a development program like never seen before. While Guyana is now emerging as an energy giant through the discovery of massive reserves of oil and natural gas, it is your government's intention that the huge benefits emerging from this will go where it matters most, to you, the people of this beloved country. There is a surge of confidence in the way Guyana is governed once again, and the level of investor interest is unprecedented. Guyana is poised to become the breadbasket of the region, and the pace at which this nation will grow through prudent fiscal management will be nothing short of impressive. But more than anything else will be the way every Guyanese, regardless of color, class, or creed, becomes a part of this historic period of national transformation, sharing in the wealth and well-being of it all as one Guyana.
The simulation exercise was preceded by a workshop on Friday, May 11, to brief all associated agencies and discuss the response plan. Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the GLDA, Dr. Dwight Waldron.
Today would be more of a technical session where we'll be interacting, and for some of us it's more of a refresher. Dr. Saraiva would be spearheading that aspect. Also, we have with us Dr. Bonnet, who would be extending some welcome greetings shortly, and Dr. Vocati, who has been, I'm sure she wouldn't disclose it, but I'm sure she's a holder of a Guyanese passport by now, based on the amount of years she would have spent in Guyana and work that she would have been doing for Guyana. Representing ICA on this occasion, we have Dr. Paris here and Colonel Craig from the Civil Defense Commission, Dr. James, who is also a board member and the chairman of the production subcommittee, animal health production genetics subcommittee of our board, and also a local observer. We have Dr. Allen, a representative of the Guyana Veterinary Association.
Dr. Mariana Bonet, a member of the team of international consultants representing PAO, ICA, and WHO, explained the simulation exercise's importance and the financial and other impact of foot-and-mouth disease on any nation state.
Many of the epidemics or disasters that we consider local, minimum, can be scaling up rapidly to a national disaster. And I also know that disaster rapidly compromise the security of a country. Listen to me, this is a different word. I didn't say epidemic now, I say the security of the country, the stability of the country can create secondary effects socially, economically, etc. And casual, today we are going to face one in a field exercise that can be potentially economic and social disaster in Guyana. Sometimes when we are coming to this exercise, we cannot foresee what is next. But there is a good reason why the OIE is exigent that every 2 years, those countries that are free of foot-and-mouth disease, and I have my professor is back to me, so he can correct me. They need to have the annual exercise and put in practice the response plan is because if we don't detect and stop rapidly foot-and-mouth disease, fire in the country.
Simulation 2018 is another aspect of collaborative work being done by Guyana and international partners to ensure that disaster response and healthcare plans are ready to deal with any eventuality.
What we have been doing with PAHO and with the Ministry of Agriculture, GLDA team, is something that for me is correct, and I congratulate as a PAH officer, the government of Guyana and the two ministries, the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Public Health, because we really think that you are doing the right. The country is now preparing, activating the best of the surveillance system, working with the ministries and different sectors to prevent the epidemic. And you know, this is finally what we need in the country. Be very well prepared to prevent, and if necessary, to early detect and contain in place the epidemic. So I am finishing. We are doing that here today, where the main focus is the emergency animal disease and zoonosis, doctor, all right? If we have a zoonosis, the foot and mouth disease plan can be accommodated to an outbreak of a zoonosis.
Dr. Victor Saraiva, another member of the team of international consultants, is the foot and mouth disease specialist.
This is FMD. What is it? It's an acute and very infectious disease, affects cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs. It causes high direct and indirect losses. The clinical signs, the classical clinical signs, is fever, blisters in the mouth, nostrils, hoof, and milk gland. What causes it? It's a very small virus. Picornaviridae is the family, Aftovirus is the genus. And there are 7 different types of virus. OAC in South America and elsewhere in the world. SAT 1, 2, and 3 in Asia, 1 in Africa and Asia only. And there are more than 60 subtypes.
I guess by now you're asking how it is that animals with cloven hooves become infected. Here is Dr. Saraiva.
Sources of infection, basically everything that comes out of an animal, contaminated fomites and fodder. Biological products, for instance, poorly inactivated vaccines is a way to introduce the disease. Meat and byproducts with a pH above 6. The incubation period is 2 to 14 days. That's why do we go into these details? Because we need to have this time frame to understand the epidemiology of the disease. If you go to a place, the guy just bought an animal, and the animal has clinical disease, you can say that this animal had been incubating between 2 or 14 days. So that helps you to understand the epidemiology of the disease, to see where you're going from that place. Source of infection, anything that gets in touch with any excretion or secretion of an animal, saliva, semen, feces, everything is contaminated. That's why when it gets to disinfect and clean a farm or animal installation, you have to be very careful about that, because everything can have the virus, and the virus is very resistant. Forms of transmission, direct contact, indirect contact, we'll see later on. Clinical signs, already talked about that. The virus is very resistant to physical and chemical action. Susceptible hosts. Every cloven hoofed animal is susceptible. And other species, some wild animals are also susceptible, but are not important in the maintenance of the disease. And the environment, of course, the environment, not only the land and the area, geographical area, but the environment modified by the man. We're going to talk about this later. There's clinical forms: acute, classic symptoms; subacute, mild symptoms; and occult, asymptomatic. It's a carrier. And it has to do with some species and some time. Every animal that is affected with FMD is a carrier for at least 21 days.
The Guyana Livestock Development Authority and its local and international partners today, Saturday, May 12th, is hosting a simulation exercise to test the country's readiness to deal with a foot-and-mouth disease outbreak in any part of the country.
We are on high alert, which means that we have to take all necessary steps and to activate all necessary resources present within the country. Also, we would have co-opted the services of some of our international collaborating partners, Pan American Health Organization, AICA, FAO. Those are organizations with which we work very closely, and by extension, our local organization, the Guyana Veterinary Association, because they have a number of veterinarians who are well experienced in this kind of confronting these type of activities.
While foot and mouth disease is not a threat to the humans, it is definitely a threat to their livelihood. It is therefore advisable to report at first sight any symptoms resembling that of foot and mouth disease among cattle. Animal disease specialist Dr. Premnath Tehul details the steps to be taken on receipt of a report of suspected disease outbreak.
When the veterinary officer goes to the farm, he informs the farmer about confinement of the animals, collect cadastral information on animal movement within a 5 to 10 kilometer radius, use of geographic information system. This is new to the GLA, but we will start now. We have started. Make contact with the police authority. As was mentioned, the veterinary officer would instruct the farmer about confinement, but the farmer might say, who the hell are you? I have to do my business. It's necessary to get the police involved. We were told of stories where the farmer would overturn the vet vehicles and all sorts of things. So the police plays a critical role here. Basic sample collection equipment should be present with the local veterinary authority, blood tubes, syringes, needle, PPE, and the manual to take samples. And he should visit the property ideally before 12 hours from the notification, within a 12-hour period.
A neighboring country has reported an outbreak of foot and mouth disease on April 21st, 2018, in the Cappuccino area, which is in proximity to Guyana's northwest border. That too would have led to us asking the Army to be here. And because we are in front of such an activity, the role of the Civil Defense Commission is very, very important in this activity. The veterinary services of Guyana is on high alert since there are reported cases of cross-border movement of people and smuggling of live animals, fresh meat, and fresh meat products from the neighboring country to the Mabaruma sub-district. A farm in Mabaruma Region 1 on the 9th of May 2018 made contact with the local veterinary officer of the Guyana Livestock Development Authority to report a strange occurrence on his livestock farm. After visiting the farm on the same day of the report, the veterinarian has determined that there is need for additional support. Reason why we are here. The head of the animal health unit was informed and a decision was taken to dispatch a rapid response team. That team would include persons from quarantine, epidemiology, our laboratory team also, and we have, here is where we're going to be doing our incident command. This location would be the actual brain of the exercise on the ground.
Confirmation of the response to the notification, plan and dispatch a team of specialized professionals to the site, inform the laboratory on a possible dispatch of materials and its urgent treatment. Dr. Hartley. Samples are coming in and they should be processed within a certain time frame. Visit to the property with suspected vesicular disease. Who should visit? The official veterinarian should visit, and he should have all the biosecurity measures to prevent the spread of foot-and-mouth disease. The epidemiological investigation that should be conducted on the farm. Record information on the epidemiological farms. A proper history should be taken on the farm. Information should be collected on population of existing livestock by species and their location within the different pastures and farms within a 5 km radius. Examination of the herd. The first thing what we need to do is observation of the animals from a distance. We would look at the animals, look for lameness, salivation, etc., signs and symptoms of foot-and-mouth disease. We would want to take the temperature and healthy animals to just rule out the presence of an infection, and then we proceed to the clinical examination. Examination of the herd. If there are lesions, then samples need to be collected, and the ideal samples for foot-and-mouth disease are vesicular fluid and epithelium. Excuse me. We need to make differential epidemiological clinical diagnosis. The veterinarian conducting the outbreak investigation should be able to do that. Samples should be sent to the laboratory for confirmation. At the same time, on the farm, there should be separation of sick animals, sick and affected animals from healthy animals. In the case of animals with signs and symptoms of foot-and-mouth disease, we should collect samples for serology. We conduct surveillance on holdings, epidemiology linked to the farm, that is farms where animals would have moved or farms where animal products would have moved, farms that have workers moving from one farm to another, etc. We need to establish control measures.
The report that you heard was that there is an outbreak of disease, of the foot-and-mouth disease in this area, which is in Mabaruma area. So the quarantine basically at this point is the checkpoint. The first checkpoint we will be asking simple question like where the vehicle coming from, the name of driver, and where the location he heading to, and if any Venezuela, if he carrying any meat product from Venezuela or so on, just to don't let it spread. So we're trying to quarantine whatever happened in this area should not meet to the second area. So this is basically for the first checkpoint of the quarantine area. That helps to prevent the spread of the disease. So for example, if the driver of that vehicle had visited Venezuela, or just coming from Venezuela, I should say, and you have the meat product from over that side, it will be staying at this area, and it should not be spread to that next area. So we try to quarantine whatever this side, should not meet on that side.
So what we're doing actually is to spray the vehicle wheels so that the vehicle won't be a mechanical vector of the disease or the organism, the pathogen that will spread the disease. So what we do, we set up these checkpoints. So we would spray the vehicle, the wheel of the vehicle, so they won't be a vector of the disease into other areas. So it's more or less a containment of the disease.
Inform the Producer Association and those related local government entities for the control and eradication of the outbreak. Determine the role to be played by the local office. Confirmation with the police of a definite interdiction of the premises. Adoption of the measures necessary for its effective control. List and plan the activities to be carried out in the field. Immediately establish all linkages with the different organizations for proper management. At the regional level, he would have to, the local veterinary officer would have to make contact with the REO, with the police, with the army, with the customs, with the fire service, etc. Arrange the location and installation of the command center. We already know that it should be within a 50 minutes drive from the last building in the infected area. Identify the necessary staff and set up the epidemiological surveillance team. Visit border and neighboring properties within a radius of 3 to 5 km of the site. The focal and perifocal zone and zone of the epidemiological surveillance, as well as the free and initial zones and their duties shall be demarcated with the date and time of their establishment.
In the background, there are technicians who apparently are currently collecting samples, which will next be analyzed by the lab, and we will get a confirmation or not of whether or not indeed there's an outbreak of foot-and-mouth disease in this location.
Disaster management is an interagency task. It brings together regional, national, and in many instances, international resources. Dr. Premnath Tehul explains the role of international collaboration in detecting and managing foot and mouth disease.
Notify Panaftosa, PAHO, WHO, Surveillance and Information System, OIE and Member State, inform the national, regional and municipal authorities, indicate the sending of aliquots of samples by the official laboratory to Panaftosa, PAHO, WHO for confirmation of the diagnosis, seek the cooperation of law enforcement, that is from the police, Coast Guard, Army, etc. Take steps for the eventual evaluation, compensation, culling, slaughter of animals, that is sanitary sacrifice and disinfection. Promote the declaration of the national health emergency. Suspend all export of animal products from the affected region and from areas of possible risk. Inform the President through the Minister of Agriculture and invite the National Animal Disease Preparedness Committee to coordinate and give support to the veterinary services. Establish the alternative to follow according to the contingency plan. Slaughter all clinically affected animals and all suspected animals in contact with them. providing necessary human, material, and financial resources for the emergency, reformulation or confirmation of the quarantine established previously shall be effected when the presence of foot-and-mouth disease is confirmed, determination of the work zone. We would need to look at the outbreak area, the perifocal zone, and the buffer or the surveillance area.
Foot-and-mouth disease, though a highly contagious virus, can be prevented. Among the methods of preventing the spread of the virus are the control of the introduction of new animals to existing stock, control over access to livestock by people and equipment, maintain sanitation of livestock pens, buildings, vehicles, and equipment, monitor and report illness, appropriate disposal of manure and dead carcasses. However, when there is an outbreak of the disease, the following are recommended: humane destruction of all infected, recovered and FMD susceptible contact animals, appropriate disposal of carcasses and all animal products, surveillance and tracing of potentially infected or exposed livestock, strict quarantine and controls on movement of livestock, equipment, vehicles, and thorough disinfection of premises and all infected material. FMB Specialist Dr. Victor Saraiva.
There are two types of vaccines: a trivalent OAC in our region, or bivalent O and A. In fact, the virus C has been very absent in the last 15 years. We had 10 years ago, the last outbreak was in the Amazon region, in Careiro da Várzea, and that was the last time the virus C was seen in the Americas. So COSALFA met in Brazil last year, and they decided that the countries may, if they want to, take the virus C from the vaccines. So in the very near future, Bolivia, Brazil, Uruguay doesn't use, Argentina is reluctant to do, and other countries will take away the virus C. That's a kind of a interim eradication, to say so, because the viruses are not protective. Virus C is only against virus C, A against A, and so on. But due to their absence, it's a waste of time and money and technology to produce a vaccine against a disease that's been away for so long. But in the meanwhile, they will produce enough antigen to keep in the vaccine banks just in case it shows up again. So we have several virus strains selected to cover field virus. In fact, we don't have a virus A that protects against all virus A's in the field. You have to find out which variant covers better that the one in the field. That's why if you happen to have a disease here, we must be very sure what kind of virus is in. Not only O, A, or C. We want to know what the molecular characterization of the virus so that we can produce a very good vaccine against it.
Following the completion of the simulation exercise in Mabaruma Northwest District, Region 1, Saturday last, the country's emergency response plans for an emergency emanating from an outbreak of foot-and-mouth disease or any other epidemic received high marks from both local and international observers. Foot-and-mouth disease specialist and PAHO consultant, Dr. Victor Saraiva.
I was impressed not only with the EPI group readiness and observation of the procedures, but also with the coordination between those involved. When we got the roadblocks, when we went to the farm, everybody is well aware of their role in this study.
Acting Director General of the Civil Defense Commission, Lieutenant Colonel Kester Craig, said the Guyana Livestock Development Authority proved its capacity to manage should an emergency arise.
From the technical perspective, what I've observed, because I was able to observe the Incident Command Center, or Incident Command Post, the checkpoints, the quarantine, and the actual focus area. So that was a good experience for me as representing the Civil Defense Commission, because what we like to understand is what is happening at all sectors. I think for the authority, it's important that you know your role and responsibility and take lead in what you have to do. And that's what was demonstrated.
For Superintendent Elton Beard of the Guyana Police Force, the exercise was timely. He said it provided an opportunity for himself and ranks to be aware of the procedures involved in the management of a declared disaster or emergency area.
When I looked at the structure, I recognized that this is not only about the FMD, but it's in dealing with any kind of disaster and how we can mobilize our resources and all these things. And so the experience indeed was good for us.
The exercise involved 57 persons, inclusive of representatives from PAHO, WHO, ICA, Ministry of Public Health, and other agencies. It was designed to evaluate the emergency preparedness plan, test the Guyana Livestock Development Authority's ability to respond to an emergency, and rapidly contain the possible spread of suspected disease from a focal farm. It also sought to establish the disease's origin and the extent of spread using epidemiological methods according to the preparedness plan.
The future of Guyana has never looked better. Our nation is on the cusp of a development program like never seen before. While Guyana is now emerging as an energy giant through the discovery of massive reserves of oil and natural gas, it is your government's intention that the huge benefits emerging from this will go where it matters most, to you, the people of this beloved country. There is a surge of confidence in the way Guyana is governed once again, and the level of investor interest is unprecedented. Guyana is poised to become the breadbasket of the region, and the pace at which this nation will grow through prudent fiscal management will be nothing short of impressive. But more than anything else will be the way every Guyanese, regardless of color, class, or creed, becomes a part of this historic period of national transformation, sharing in the wealth and well-being of it all as one Guyana.
Here's an important message from the Ministry of Finance and the Guyana Revenue Authority.
If you've never filed or paid your taxes, or have deliberately not declared your true income, and now you're worried that you'll be audited by the Guyana Revenue Authority, I have good news for you.
The Ministry of Finance has announced a tax amnesty effective January 1 to September 30, 2018.
So you can now pay all your outstanding income, property, corporate, withholding, and capital gains taxes and get right with the GRA. Visit their office or call them at 227-6060, extension 1201 or 1204 today.
Invest in your country. Pay your taxes. The taxes we pay provide revenue for the government to use to develop and improve our country's infrastructure and the life of all Guyanese.
If we pay our taxes, the government will be able to build more roads, schools, hospitals, bridges, and other government facilities.
The government will also be able to use those funds to pay better wages and salaries to public servants and to improve government services.
This will help to attract more investors to our country, create jobs, and reduce poverty.
Let's invest in our country. Pay your taxes.
A message from the Ministry of Finance and the Guyana Revenue Authority.
This brings us to the end of another edition of InfoHub In Depth, where we looked at the recent simulation exercise that was successfully conducted by the Guyana Livestock Development Authority. Thanks for watching, and do join us again next week.